Jeremy Albert Best, a 50-year-old mechanic from Victor, Idaho, was convicted of unspeakable crimes that shook a quiet community to its core. In November 2023, he brutally murdered his pregnant wife, Jean Randall, their unborn daughter, Freya, and their 10-month-old son, Zeke Best. This documentary dives deep into the chilling details of these heinous acts, dissecting the mind of a killer through the lens of psychology and psychoanalysis. Prepare to unravel the dark forces that drove Best to commit one of the most depraved family annihilations in recent history. Why focus on Jeremy Best? Because his crimes aren't just horrifying, they're a psychological enigma, a case study in how a seemingly ordinary man can descend into unimaginable violence. His actions demand scrutiny, not just for their brutality, but for the twisted mental state that birthed them. Picture this. A man shoots his pregnant wife 4 times in the back, ending her life and that of their unborn child. Then, with chilling precision, he slashes the throat of his 10-month-old son, Zeke, and even the family dog's sister with a kitchen knife. The savagery is raw, unfiltered, and stomach-churning. Blood stains the walls of their Victor home. A revolver lies spent on the kitchen table, and a phone is smashed to pieces in the entryway. This isn't just murder. It's a descent into madness, a puzzle that screams for psychological analysis. Let's step into the mind of Jeremy Best, a man who, on the surface, was just another small-town mechanic. Born and raised in Idaho, Best's early life offers few clear clues to the monster he'd become. Details about his childhood are sparse, but what we do know paints a picture of a man grappling with inner demons long before November 2023. A family friend, Michael Attella, described Best as someone who experienced manic episodes even in his youth, hinting at a volatile psyche. These episodes, later diagnosed as bipolar disorder, suggest a brain wired for extreme highs and crushing lows, where rational thought could be drowned out by overwhelming impulses. Bipolar disorder, for those unfamiliar, is a mental health condition marked by dramatic mood swings, manic phases of reckless energy, and depressive spirals of despair. In Best's case, these swings weren't just emotional, they were deadly. Best's family life seemed unremarkable at first glance. He met Jean Randall in 2009, and they married in September 2022. Callie, an artist and former veterinary technician, was described by her brother Brian as a genuine, beautiful soul. Their son, Zeke, born in January 2023, brought joy but also strain. The couple faced financial pressures, including a $100,000 NICU bill from Zeke's premature birth. Text messages uncovered by police reveal a marriage on the brink. Divorce was mentioned 5 times in their 14-month union. Best's verbal abuse toward Callie, coupled with his drug use, turned their home into a pressure cooker. The pregnancy with Freya, their unborn daughter, only intensified the tension, described by prosecutors as adding fuel to fire. From a psychoanalytic perspective, Best's behavior suggests a fragile ego unable to cope with external stressors. Sigmund Freud might argue that Best's unconscious mind, burdened by unresolved conflicts, projected his rage onto his family. Financial strain, a high-risk pregnancy, and his own mental instability created a perfect storm. His drug use, likely a coping mechanism, further eroded his impulse control, a hallmark of bipolar mania. This wasn't a man planning a cold-blooded murder. This was a psyche unraveling, a ticking bomb waiting to explode. What drives a man to slaughter his own family? To understand Best's motives, we need to dig into the psychology of family annihilation, a rare but devastating phenomenon. Forensic psychologists describe family annihilators as individuals who, facing overwhelming personal failure, choose to destroy their entire world rather than confront their shame. Best fits this profile chillingly well. His business, Jeremy's Auto, was struggling, and the mounting debts from Zeke's medical bills and Callie's pregnancy loomed large. In a video from November 2020, Best's voice drips with despair as he tells Callie, "We're not supposed to have children," a haunting foreshadowing of the violence to come. Psychologically, Best's actions align with what experts call altruistic filicide, the delusional belief that killing one's family is a mercy, sparing them from perceived worse fate. In his manic state, Best may have convinced himself that his family was better off dead than living in financial ruin or under his perceived failures as a husband and father. This distorted thinking, often fueled by bipolar disorder's manic grandiosity, can make catastrophic decisions feel rational. Add substance abuse to the mix, and you have a mind stripped of restraint, capable of unimaginable violence. But why Callie, Freya, and Zeke? Victim selection and family annihilation is deeply personal. Callie, as the primary source of Beth's emotional and financial stress, became the focal point of his rage. Her pregnancy with Freya symbolized a future he felt he couldn't provide for, a burden too heavy for his fractured psyche. Zeke, a helpless infant, represented both the joy and the crushing responsibility Beth couldn't handle. Psychoanalytically, Beth's choice of victims reflect a projection of his self-loathing. He wasn't just killing his family. He was annihilating the parts of himself he couldn't bear. November 30th, 2023. Started like any other day in Victor, Idaho, but ended in a nightmare that would haunt the community forever. Imagine the scene, a quiet rural home, the kind where neighbors wave from porches. Inside, the air is thick with tension. Callie, 38 and pregnant, is in the kitchen, unaware that her husband is spiraling. Best, his mind clouded by mania and drugs, grabs a revolver from the gun safe. Without warning, he shoots Callie 4 times in the back, each bullet tearing through her body, and her life and that of Freya, their unborn daughter. Blood pools on the floor, the metallic scent mixing with the silence of death. But Best isn't done. He turns to his 10-month-old son, Zeke, cradled in innocence. With a steak knife in the kitchen, he slashes Zeke's throat, the blade slicing through tender flesh as the baby's cries fade into gurgles. The family dog, Sister, meets the same fate, her throat cut in a final act of brutality. The scene is a tableau of horror. Blood drips down the walls. The revolver lies empty on the table, and Callie's phone, smashed in two, rests in the entryway. Forensic evidence paints a vivid picture. Detective Neil Stevens of the Idaho State Police described the crime scene. The power was cut to the entire property, plunging the house into darkness, perhaps a symbolic act of Best shutting out the world. The 911 call, placed on the landline and abruptly disconnected, captured a woman's scream, likely Callie's final moments. A forensic blood analyst from Boston reconstructed the carnage. Drip patterns and blood flow suggest Callie was shot where she stood, unaware of the danger. Zeke's death was even more gruesome. The knife wounds precise yet frenzied, a mix of calculation and rage. The dog's death, though less reported, underscores Best's complete detachment from empathy, a trait often seen in offenders with severe personality disorders. Witness reports add to the chilling narrative. Earlier that day, Best wandered naked into the Swan Valley General Store, muttering incoherently. Store employees, alarmed, called police, who took him to Eastern Idaho Regional Medical Center for a mental health evaluation. Shockingly, he was released hours later, with Callie picking him up. If EIRMC hadn't let him go, this tragedy wouldn't have happened, said Melanie Reberg, a friend of the couple, her voice trembling with hindsight. The hospital's failure to recognize Best's mental state is a stark reminder of how broken systems can amplify a killer's path. Let's break down Best's psyche through a clinical lens. Dr. John Landers, an Idaho clinical psychologist who evaluated Best, diagnosed him with bipolar I disorder, mania, and substance abuse disorder. Bipolar I is the most severe form, characterized by full-blown manic episodes that can last days or weeks, often accompanied by delusions or reckless behavior. Best's naked escapade at the store suggests a manic episode, disinhibition, confusion, and a detachment from reality. His refusal to consistently take medication in jail, as noted by Dr. Landers, points to a lifelong struggle with treatment compliance, a common issue in bipolar patients that can exacerbate violent tendencies. From a psychoanalytic perspective, Best's actions reflect a catastrophic failure of the ego to mediate between his ID and superego. His drug use, likely methamphetamine or similar stimulants, amplified his manic state, stripping away any remaining impulse control. This aligns with the concept of de-individuation, where an individual loses their sense of self and moral boundaries, acting on primal urges. Best's verbal abuse toward Callie, calling her a terrible housewife in a video days before the murders, reveals a deep-seated misogyny and resentment, possibly rooted in unconscious feelings of inadequacy. Could there be more to his pathology? While no formal diagnosis of psychopathy was reported, Best's ability to kill his infant son and dog suggests a profound lack of empathy, a hallmark of antisocial personality disorder. However, unlike a psychopath's calculated cruelty, Best's actions feel chaotic, driven by a manic frenzy rather than cold premeditation. His guilty plea to second-degree murder for Callie and Freya, but not the premeditated portion, supports this. His violence was impulsive, a eruption of a mind in freefall. After the murders, Best fled with Zeke's body in his black 1995 Chevrolet Tahoe, leaving a trail of dread. For 2 days, authorities scoured eastern Idaho, an Amber Alert blaring for the missing 10-month-old. On December 2nd, 2023, hunters stumbled upon a scene straight out of a horror film. Best, naked and incoherent, lying in a sleeping bag beside a highway. Nearby, his SUV was stuck in an embankment, and inside, Zeke's lifeless body lay, his throat slashed. The family dog, sister, was also dead, her blood mingling with the snow. Best's arrest was swift, his dazed expression in his mugshot a haunting contrast to the carnage he'd wrought. He looked like a ghost, one hunter later told police, his voice shaking. The media descended, painting Best as a monster hiding in plain sight. Our Zeke is now at rest with his loving mama and unborn sibling. The Randall family wrote in a statement, their grief palpable. The pain we feel is unimaginable. Callie's cousin, Meg Fisher, spoke of her love for animals and motherhood, saying, she gave her life protecting her children. The community reeled, struggling to reconcile the mechanic they knew with the killer he became. In February 2025, Best pleaded guilty to first-degree murder for Zeke and second-degree murder for Callie and Freya, avoiding the death penalty through a plea deal mediated with the victims' families. On July 24, 2025, District Judge Dane Watkins Jr. sentenced him to 3 consecutive life sentences without parole, calling his crimes some of the most depraved acts the state has ever witnessed. Best, emotionless in court, offered a hollow apology, but for the Randall family, it was closure. We're grateful the court saw Callie, Zeke, and Freya as humans, said Brian Randall, urging the community to reflect on their legacies. Philosophically, Best's story forces us to confront the nature of evil. Is it a product of a broken mind, or does it lurk in us all, waiting for the right trigger? Existentialist thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre might argue that Best's freedom to choose his actions, even in mania, defines his culpability. He wasn't a puppet of his disorder. He chose to pull the trigger, to wield the knife. Yet, from a deterministic perspective, his untreated bipolar disorder and drug use created a perfect storm, eroding his agency. The tragedy lies in the gray area. Best was both victim and villain, a man whose mind betrayed him and those he loved. His fate, locked away forever, raises a haunting question. Can we ever truly prevent such horrors, or are some minds destined to break? The Victor, Idaho, community remains scarred, the memory of Callie, Zeke, and Freya etched into its soul. Callie's jewelry, once crafted with love, now sits untouched, a reminder of a life cut short. Zeke's laughter, described by family as love-filled, echoes only in memory. Freya, never given a chance to live, symbolizes the ultimate loss. The Randall family's wrongful death lawsuit against Best, filed in April 2025, seeks to reclaim some justice, alleging he had assets to avoid accountability. But no amount of money can undo the bloodstained nightmare of November 2023. As we close this documentary, imagine standing in that Victor home, the silence deafening, the walls still whispering of a horror. Jeremy Best's story isn't just about a killer. It's about the fragility of the human mind, the thin line between love and destruction. His bipolar disorder, untreated and fueled by drugs, turn a husband and father into a monster. But the real terror lies in the what-ifs. What if he'd been medicated? What if the hospital hadn't released him? What if Callie had left? These questions linger, a chilling reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we trust to keep us safe.